Okay, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Athletic Scout podcast. My guest today, happy to have him on before he heads out east to begin his sophomore year in college. I know Scout fans remember him as being the strong armed, blonde haired quarterback. He's a Michigan fan, but we'll kind of let that go. His name is
How
Danny Van Camp. Danny, how are you?
are you, John? I'm doing well.
I
I
couldn't
like that
resist taking a
intro.
shot at you there to start.
I
So
like
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah, yeah,
intro.
yeah.
That's good. That's
You like
good.
that? I've just been waiting to take a little shot at you for the Michigan
Yeah.
thing for just to start. So we
Yeah.
got for people who don't know, I'm a Michigan State guy. Danny's a Michigan guy. I've been doing this back and forth since he was in fifth grade. So whatever it is, it's all good.
Yeah.
Hey, let's talk about you right now. As I mentioned at the top of the show, you're heading off to Yale here. I think in a couple of days. I'm recording this on a Wednesday. You're leaving, I think, on Friday, right? To
Yeah.
head out.
Yep. Yep. Friday.
Talk about where you are right now in terms of the year coming up. And I know you are a lacrosse player at Yale. Obviously, you're a student too. And talk about just kind of your emotions and where you are right now about getting ready for your sophomore season in college.
Yeah. I'm really pumped. I loved my first year. Yale's great. Obviously a great school. Absolutely send your kid there if that's the opportunity. But I've had a great time and lacrosse has been amazing. Everything I wanted it to be. Got really in shape this summer. Didn't play my first year, redshirted, so gonna have an extra year depending on how things shake out. And I mean, it was that new 5-and-5 rule, so I was gonna get one anyways. But now I know I have one. And I'm feeling great. Three open spots on defense, looking to get a start this year and see where that goes. And then just for the rest, like school and everything, looking good. Obviously it was tough first year, kind of comes in from behind, sweeps your legs and you just pick yourself back up and figure it out. But it's going really well. I'm really excited. I think I'm one of the last kids to actually go to college. So I've been here like by myself forever, but it's been really good. I'm really excited for sophomore year.
Yeah, saw you at the football game on Friday night. The Scouts had their football opener. That was kind of odd, right?
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
classes weren't in session, right? I think they start, one day this week, but you were able to see some of your old teammates there. Schnack was down there. There were a few other guys who were there at the game. For you and for people who don't know, again, Danny was a 3-year varsity player for the high school, part of that great 2024 team that made it to the quarterfinals, but also won a couple state championships in the sport of lacrosse. And I want to ask you about that. You said your freshman year you didn't play. You were adjusting to obviously college life, but as somebody who's participated in sports since you were probably in elementary school playing multiple sports, what were the challenges of not playing, and what were some things you were able to get better at, either mentally, personal growth, academics, those types of things, from not playing in that spring season there for Yale?
Yeah, it was definitely a shock just since I don't think there's been a year I haven't played since I was a kid. I mean, be having to just watch everyone go out there and perform and um only get the reps in practice was a little weird, but I had a feeling just because it was in the next level that it was going to be something along that path. Obviously, I put in my work and my effort and saw you know, wherever it landed me. But, I was always there for the guys. And I think what it taught me was just patience and, willingness to work for what you want. Obviously, I want to play and I want to start and I want to win games. And I know that just doing what I had been doing obviously wasn't enough to go start. And obviously, high school prepared me well. But there's always that next level that the coaches are looking for, especially once you get there. They just want you to work hard and to get better. And they know that you're competitive enough to do that. And then obviously, you'll see a lot of growth from that. And then, you know, the thing was they kept you busy. It wasn't like, oh, you're not playing, you get to take the day off. You actually would do like more in practice because they didn't want the guys who were playing to get injured and everything like on a random practice. So it was really good. It kept me busy and I was just excited to go to practice every day, and it's great being with the guys. You get hyped for them when they make great plays because you've been with them all year, and it's been awesome.
Yeah, and I'm sure you kind of knew that probably going in, right? That maybe
Yeah.
this freshman year would be a trend. It wasn't like they were, hey, you're going to start, and all of a sudden you're not. So you're probably a little more mentally prepared
Mhm.
going into that. I'm going to ask you this though: is what is one thing? I know the college process for you was very involved because you wanted to be a college athlete. But what is maybe a handful of things? Maybe you touched on this a little bit earlier in your answer, but what are some things that maybe you just don't know about that first year of being a student athlete beforehand that you really have to experience? People will tell you, they'll give you, hey, here are 5 things you got to be ready for this, blah, blah, blah. But you're like, you really don't know until you go through it. What are maybe some highlights of that maybe you can share with some folks out there that might be looking to go through this process or in the middle of it right now?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question. So, what I noticed the most was
Not
that,
bad for a Spartan, Danny. And not bad for a Spartan. We have
my
occasionally we
gosh,
have good questions.
every so often, but you're always asking a Michigan fan for answers, so it's fun. Um, I would say the coaches are gonna give you what you want to hear. I feel like that might be a little apparent, but they want you to go to their school and they want you bad in any way. So you're not gonna get exactly what you're expecting. Like if you're talking to a coach, they're gonna not necessarily lie, but they're gonna like sugarcoat a lot of things, and it's gonna sound better than it might be or it might not be. It's just not gonna be the same as what they tell you. So you have to pick. What I did was pick a school that I knew I was going to develop in academically, and I trusted the coaches enough. Yale was great about that. Obviously, like I think one thing about Yale is that they shoot it very straight. They were like, it was very apparent in my like conversations with them that it's going to be hard, and like that's you're signing up for like basically a full-time job. And I think that the allure of keeping me on schedule and keeping me on task and in shape and everything was very, very cool for me. So finding a school that's good for you and not just like an athletic program and like basing it all off what the coaches say, I think is a little bit, you have to just kind of experience it for the first time. Um, Obviously for me, the academics were number one. Um,
Yeah.
that's a no brainer. So always, try and strive for the best you can academically, and wherever you land will be perfect for you. Some other advice going in. I mean, one thing is just don't assume that, because you're going to this school or the coaches said you're going to this school, whatever it might be, that you are automatically in the school and, you know, everything's just going to go your way and whatever. You know, it's, there's still a process, at least for Yale, they still read your application. They still, look at whatever you're doing outside of the class, how your grades are, all of this stuff. Like it's not like you're just getting a free walk. Obviously, the coach sponsors you and they like that and they need their athletes, but there's still an expectation that you go to the school, you are going to represent us well, and in the future you will, continue to represent the school that you went to. Um, and then like just do like uh, in terms of athletics, like if you love it you should keep doing it. I wanted to do football and lacrosse. I didn't It would took me
Mm.
until senior year in like October to really like decide that I wanted to play lacrosse. Yeah, I loved both sports, and I thought both would have given me a great outcome. Lacrosse was just, it had the best offer, and one that obviously I couldn't turn down. And I just love the sport. I love playing. I love the guys. I love everything that comes with it. Football was amazing for me too, and so that was a tough decision. But I mean, you can't go wrong. I love sports. I don't think I'd imagine in college without sports is kind of crazy. Just the amount of
Mm.
free time that you would have. And then yeah, like obviously sports takes up a lot of time. But it's not impossible. It's not like it's, you know, something you can't do without, like, I'm studying mechanical engineering, and the classes, they just fill up your schedule. It looks like a mess right now, but like I'm still playing lacrosse, and they still want me to be there and contribute to the team. So I mean, you can really do whatever you want with sports. It's just something else that you can do. And again, it's sports. It's not, you know, life or death. So that
No,
was a
but it's
little
something that's a
long-winded.
part of your life and part of your. Yeah, again, you Wolverines like to hear yourselves talk. I
Okay.
understand that part of it. But what you just said was about, I think it was a great answer because you talked about your identity, right, as a person, and sports is part of that identity. Certainly the academic piece is a part of it too. I want to get back to what you said earlier about playing both sports, because I want to get your thoughts on multi-sport athletes and this idea of specialization. But I want to go, but tell the audience what a typical day like is for you. Um, and this can be off season, in season. Maybe you can share whichever one. I'd imagine in season might be a little more busier just because of games and travel, right? Because you guys travel
Mhm.
for lacrosse, for your road games. But just give me an idea of, hey, what time you wake up in the morning, what's, how what, when our practices in the afternoon, are they in the morning? Like, just give us an
Yeah.
idea of kind of what your day is like.
Okay. I can give you like an off season, in season. They're pretty similar. For example, like this coming semester, I'm waking up around probably 6:30. I think I'm lifting
Yeah.
7:30 in the morning at our facility. So I'll be like an hour and a half right after. I'm going straight to my first class at 9:30. Then I have lunch. There's not a whole lot of time for lunch, so I had to squeeze it in. Then I got my second class at I think it's 11:30. Right after that, I've got another class at 1 o'clock, and then I've got a lab at 2:30, so full day. And then right after that, around 7, I believe, is practice. And so, that obviously that sounds daunting, but that's only one day of the week. And if you can get it over with, the rest of the week comparatively is it's honestly a breeze. So that's sort of what an off season, that's like one of the harder off season days. That's what it'll look like. Usually it's a captain's practice and a lift, or a lift and a practice, or just a practice, something like that. And then obviously you've got your classes, and usually you're not. I'm usually not waking up super early. Usually it'll be like an 8:30, maybe 8:15 wake up. Usually if we don't have anything in the morning, obviously I've lift on Mondays, so that's a different animal. But usually it's not super like intensive in that regard. For an in season last year, we had a game on a Tuesday night on the road, um, on Long Island, and that was a pain because you've got your classes still. I have like a 9:30 a.m. and then I've got a 11:30, and then right after that we're going to practice around maybe 2 or something. And it's a walkthrough, it's a game day, but you still had to practice and get ready. And so then you get on the bus at 3:34 to go to Long Island. I've got I literally had a paper due the next day, so I'm on the bus typing away at my paper.
Mhm.
You get there, traffic's terrible. You get there a little late, game starts late. All of a sudden, it's like 10 o'clock when you're finished, and you got to drive back to school and,
Mhm.
go back to sleep because you're practicing the next day, and you've got to, classes and whatever. You got a paper to finish. And it's like some days there are just days that kick you in the butt, and it sucks. But that's, again, that's one day in the season. Like you got to expect that at least one day in the season is gonna, you know, get you. Like it's a guarantee. And so I mean that's like a one Tuesday in the year. Usually it's a practice at the end, and I've got time before to, have lunch and maybe do a little homework, whatever it takes. But it's like those are like the two, probably the hardest days of the season.
Yeah, and I think people don't realize too the lacrosse season, at least in college, is typically going to be what maybe mid-February, right? Is maybe when you start playing games,
Yeah,
maybe late February, and that depending on how well you do, you might play one game a week, right? It's almost like a football schedule. Maybe you play two a week. I think in lacrosse, it's probably closer to one a week, right? Depending
yeah.
how you
So
do,
yeah,
the season might end in late April, but you might go all the way to the end of May, right? Depending on how well you do in the postseason. So that's still a good 2.5 months, right? In terms of, I mean, there was a
yeah,
playing season, not
hmm
practicing and all that kind of stuff. So you're talking, it's
yeah,
still that's kind of a spring semester time frame.
yeah. It spans the whole spring semester and obviously later the season. The season officially ends Labor Day weekend, and for us it starts in the middle of February. But that's kind of an Ivy League thing. Um, the season officially starts February 1st. And Ivy Leagues, there are certain rules that before that you can only practice a certain amount. Obviously, it's different for the Big Ten and the ACC and the other schools, just because they don't have those same regulations. It works perfectly. Like I love it. I'm still getting better, and we still get better as a team with the limited practices. But it really helps me academically and outside of
Yeah.
sports, where I have more time to get better grades, you know, find friends and all this other stuff that comes with being in college, just being in college. Um, but yeah, like if you do well, usually it'll go, it's a game a week, at least for us. Sometimes teams will have more. But yeah, it can be 3 months long. It can be like a month and a half. It can be, it sort of all depends on how your schedule works out, but and how you do as a team. So it's definitely ups and downs. But it's awesome. Like we made it to May, like I think it was 11th was our last game. We made it to the first round of the playoffs. Got to go
Mm.
to Syracuse in their dome, and it was a great environment, great experience, and we didn't come. We was a close game, very close game, but very fun. I didn't, watching that and cheering on the guys and everything was it was a great time. So I don't mind going a little long.
A chance to play in the Carrier Dome, which I don't know if it's still called the Carrier Dome. That's what it used to be
Yeah,
called, but that's one of the
yeah,
first domed stadiums, I think, certainly college ones in the United States that's been around forever. Again, our guest is Danny Van Camp. Danny is a sophomore, about to start a sophomore year at Yale University. He's a defenseman for Yale and was a two-sport athlete for the Scouts. And I want to ask you about that aspect too, because you alluded to how hard it was for you to eventually make a decision, right? Where you're like, man, I want to play football, I want to play lacrosse, but it got to the point where, Yale offers, and I'm like, man, I got to, one's got to go, right? I got to drop one of these, and you
yeah,
end up dropping football. The two sport thing for you, you played football as a youth player. That's how you and I had a relationship coaching you, for junior scouts, and you were doing both in middle school. Remember you showing up with your LF lax, dry fit t-shirts
yeah,
football practice. I think
yeah,
the LFLA program is just starting to really roll at that point. I think we're nowadays, that thing is obviously cranking out great athletes, and you're seeing it at the high school level. Why did you play both even in high school? Why was it so important for you to have that outlet to have football and lacrosse? And how did one complement the other?
yeah. I think first and foremost, I'm a sports junkie, I guess. I can't do school without sports, plain and simple. So I had to play. I wanted to play basketball too. Like that, I think that's just how a lot of kids are. They have
Yeah.
their, whatever they're interested in. But for me, sports was like, yes, you have to play sports. And like football, I love football. And then lacrosse, I've been playing forever. Again, like you said, the uh, LFLA, it's my dad helped, started, so I was so involved in that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I loved playing and I loved the guys and I didn't. It was I grew up with a lot of those guys, so getting to keep playing with them in high school was a must. But just love, I loved both sports. It was like you know Football was great. I mean, I didn't know if I was a quarterback at the time. I was like one of the biggest kids on the team, but I just thought it was awesome just being able to throw the ball. I thought that was so cool. Um, and I wanted to just play because it was so fun. And football is a big deal, especially at like Forest. Rich history, like a lot of guys come out of that program, and it's all like I would grow up going to the football games, and I wanted to play like Forest football. I thought that was so cool. And
Mhm.
everyone was doing it. When all your friends do it, it's like, well, I guess I got to do it. Um, and it was just a blast. Like 4 years with great guys. I would have never not done football. I loved it so much. So in terms of, I guess, you know, playing two sports, it was awesome for me. And it got me in shape. I remember I wanted to play basketball my freshman year, and my dad was like, "No, you're going to be lifting for football instead during the winter." And I'm like, "That sounds so boring." But he's like, "Try, like, it'll be way better for you than playing basketball." And it was. And, every winter it was, still football season, and then lacrosse would start up in the spring. And obviously that was awesome. And we did very well there, and I loved every second of that. But yeah, football was always, I loved football. I loved watching football, so I had to play football, even though obviously I'm in college for lacrosse.
Yeah, and look, you were part of one of the largest and most successful senior classes in school history. When you
Yeah.
consider what you guys accomplished that senior year, and then you consider how many guys played lacrosse and winning back-to-back state championships, right, in 2024 and 2025. So it's. I mean, that was a heck of an experience. So obviously, you had a very fulfilled experience there as an athlete with all the winning you did. I want to ask you, did you? When did you notice? I mean, what is your thoughts on why there are so many guys now that play both? Why lacrosse has been that secondary sport, or for some guys, football is the secondary sport? And did you notice that coming up? And do you have any ideas or theories as to why those sports now seem to complement the others? Maybe certainly physically, mentally, physiologically, you can make some arguments for both sports, but also
Yeah.
socially, there appears to be an element to it as well, right? So what? Just I'm sure you have maybe some theories or thoughts on kind of why that is.
I I love I love this. It was always great, in lacrosse we would like recruit football guys basically. Like we were like, "Oh, you don't play a spring sport. You want to come play lacrosse?" Cuz athletically it's pretty similar. If you are a big kid, fast kid, strong, whatever it is, um there's definitely a spot for you on the lacrosse field. No, like whatever it might be, there's so many positions in lacrosse, and I think in a way it translated pretty well, just the physicality of it. Obviously it's a little different with a stick and everything, and there's a hand-eye component that not everyone has. Like it is what it is. Um but it's pretty similar, physicality wise. um I think the success we had in lacrosse helped, guys want to be part of a winning team. I think that's, plain and simple. If a team is winning, you would want to be a part of that. And that's awesome. I think that was a great, you know, side effect of um the work that we put in over the 4 years. Obviously before that, and it's still going. And then obviously socially, football, like, so football is, yeah, that's kind of like the high school sport. Everyone, there's no cuts, so everyone plays if they want to. um and I had a great time. It's a great experience. The bonds you make are unbelievable. But a lot of kids have started to play lacrosse. I think maybe that's due to like the youth program, um, whatever it is. But when you see your friend playing a sport and they love it and they're winning and they're having fun, it's just an extra boost and like a you know bird on your shoulder saying, "Oh, you should go play that sport," because clearly they're having a good time, and
Hmm.
you want to spend time with them. You want to you know have fun and have a good time with sports. And um, if your friend is playing it and they're having a good time, that's another reason to go play.
Yeah, there's the iron sharpens iron kind of theory, right? Where I think
Yeah,
one sport kind of feeds into the other. I think there's probably the success that both programs have had, certainly has something to do with that. And I think there's when sports have success and friends are recruiting the other friends, right? You're more peer influence at that age, right? So you want to spend
yeah,
time and do things that your friends do. Obviously, the coaching is exceptional with both sports, and so that hey,
mhm,
you're going to see those results fairly quickly. I would do want I do want to ask you about this, is because there might be some parents out there watching or listening to this, or some young athletes thinking, well, should I specialize? I'm a baseball player. I'm playing travel baseball, and man, it's like it's getting busy now. It's year round. I got fall ball. I got my coaches telling me I can play in college. That I really should think about playing 12 months out of the year, or I have to train because I got to keep up with my peers now, right? I got to keep training
yeah.
and lifting and that sort of thing. And what do you say to that? What do you see in either sport? I'm talking. It could be a football player thinking they got to specialize, a baseball player, a lacrosse player. And I'm talking younger
Yeah.
athletes, ones that might be 14, 15, 16 years old. You were able to make it work. What advice would you give to those families or kids out there that are kind of having those conversations right now?
I think specializing is crazy. I get the allure to it. I There was a kid I was coaching this summer, and his dad was like, "Yeah, it's crazy like how much pressure is on the parents to basically make their kid the best at their sport, and specializing is becoming so much more common because they think that training them year round in one sport is going to directly, their stock grows directly from that. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think it's, I'm trying to think of like a metaphor kind of, but in a way, it just having that one sport and that one experience, you leave out, there's a lot of holes, obviously, and you're kind of building on certain layers, but then there's obviously layers that you don't find. And then, you know, somewhere in your journey, obviously that's going to get exposed in some way. And so for me, um, if let's just say I always wanted to play lacrosse, and that was, my goal from day one was I'm going to go play lacrosse in college. Well, football helped me with like team building. Obviously, there's a lot more in that in football. Strength, conditioning. If I just played lacrosse, I wouldn't have that kind of strength, like coaching and um, that growth, like physically, and like toughness. Obviously, I mean, football is so tough. But there's so much to gain from playing multiple sports,
Mm.
and then obviously, like I think like athletic trainer personnel types will tell you that it's just safer as an athlete. If you're playing year round, you're getting exposed to, you know, all of this, all of these external factors that are affecting your body physically, and you're just more prepared for things. If let's say, I don't know, if you're a baseball player, all you're doing is, swinging the bat, um, and throwing the ball. If you run track or something, now you're more prepared to run faster. You are, in better shape in terms of just physically. You can go for longer. You probably have, you're just more physically prepared. You can swing better just because you're in better shape. I think even something as small as that is, way more beneficial than just trying to pound away at a certain aspect and like a couple aspects of a specific game that you can't really fill those gaps without playing another sport and being with other guys and just experiencing a different like environment entirely. And so I thought like I understand it. It's so competitive now with transferring and fifth year, and it's daunting. I'm in like the best position right now because the Ivy Leagues, it's hard to transfer in. You can't, there's a way to do it. It's not super
Yeah.
easy. I'm the year I get that 5-5, but I'm not the year that's getting recruited into it. I was already on the team. So it affected me a little bit, but not as much as like the incoming class where they're coming in saying, "Oh, I'm going to be on this team." All of a sudden, they're like, "No, we're just going to bring these seniors back." And sorry, like you go find somewhere else to go play. I didn't have that, that thing happen to me. So very thankful for it. But I understand like if you're a parent and what your son wants to play, your daughter wants to play, and then you're trying to do everything for them. I get where it's coming from, but I think the idea of specializing doesn't necessarily help them necessarily in the way that it's advertised. I think, branching out and just trying different stuff that helped me a lot. And also like I sent the Yale guys my football film, like
Mhm.
I showed them like this is like I play football, and they're like, "That's awesome, dude! Like, you're getting out, you're getting active. Like, there's seasons for sports. If you're just a football player, you can't play contact football all year round. Like, it's August to November, pretty much. Like,
Yeah.
even shorter. You only get so many games, and so if you can show off your athletic ability in the spring, like with lacrosse, that's even like if it's in terms of film, that's even more film you can show. That's just getting better. You're staying in shape. If you're just sitting in the gym, obviously you get stronger, but putting all of that muscle on is, you're not going to get faster necessarily. You had to train that too. And so just by being in a sport, you're getting the live reps in whatever it is, you're getting it more athletic, getting in shape. I think playing multiple sports and branching out is way more valuable for a young adult trying to go into college.
Yeah, well said. And I think it also, and you can answer this better than anybody, it puts you in more competitive situations. So whether it means you have to make that free throw right at the end of the game to send the game into overtime, or you're a pitcher, it's 2-0, and you got to get a strikeout with the bases loaded. It might be some random game in the spring, but hey, being able to get that out, that helps condition yourself mentally a little bit more, right? To say,
Yeah,
hey, I can do this. I can do this, right? So I
yeah,
think of all the competitive situations you were in with football, all those great games in 24, 23, and the state championship run. Those were not all blowout games, right? You had some really close games against St. Viator and a few other ones. I'm talking about the championship season, right?
yeah,
Um, so you can say, hey, the mental conditioning in football may have helped me with lacrosse and vice versa. So I got
yeah,
one more thing I want to ask Danny with before we let him go, because I know we got limited time with him. He's a Michigan guy, so he's got stuff going on. Um, and that is about your Christian faith. And I know you're somebody at Yale who participates in prayer workshops and something that's very
mhm.
important to you, to continue to express that part of your life. And why is it so important to you? And is it something, would you encourage other young athletes to find outlets for that and to discuss that, and why it has helped you as a person and as an athlete?
Yeah. I First and foremost, I think having that faith helps you stay grounded. So going through college, first year, you know, there aren't many certainties that you can find, and I knew that relying on my faith and keeping up with prayer and staying grounded in that department would help me with other stuff. I joined it's called Athletes in Action at Yale. I think there's other chapters at other schools, but it's like a weekly prayer workshop. It's an hour at night. Sometimes I couldn't, like, if you can't, like, it's not like it's a binding thing. Like, if you can't go, you miss a day. Like, it is what it is. Obviously, it's for athletes. It's for, they understand that you're going to be busy and that it's going to be a struggle, keeping up with that. But if you put in the work and the time and just make a good effort for it, it's going to pay off. And it definitely helped me achieve like what I wanted to do. I wouldn't be here without my faith. And it was a big part of me growing up. I went to private Catholic school from kindergarten to eighth grade, and then I went to public school my senior year, or my for high school, because I grew up with Lake Forest. But there's always that religious part of me that you just need that to ground yourself. And obviously you can do anything through Christ. That's what I like to live by. And I know that when it's, funny example, it's midterm season and you're just sweating bullets, you don't know what's about to happen. And it's tough. It's stressful, but knowing that, all right, obviously the Lord's looking out for me. He's you know, protecting me, and he knows that I can do it. He knows that, if I trust in him, he'll give me the grace and the knowledge and the patience to overcome my obstacles. And it might not be an A on the test, but it might be resilience and that ability to study hard. You don't get the grades you want, but in some way you get an outcome that you would like. And obviously it's not like a transactional thing. It's just believing and understanding that he's there, watching over you, protecting you in all facets of life. I think it's great. I think, you know, I'm not going to be necessarily preaching right now, but it's definitely, I think younger kids should look into it. Just like, if you're not already part of the faith, it's not like you got to pay for it. It's just, I've had a great experience with that. I know it's kind of weird to say about a faith, but it's a little hard to talk about, and it is definitely not necessarily a stigma, but if people start talking about religion, it can kind of get a little bit like, this is coming out of the blue. And I love talking about it. I love, asking questions because I don't know everything. um, I want to, everyone wants to, but there's a lot of mysteries and a lot of stuff that just we can't comprehend. And so having that faith and that trust and saying, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what will happen, but I know that if you're here with me, you will protect me. And, whatever the outcome is, we'll live with it. We'll learn from it, and our faith will grow stronger. And having that backbone is super important, I think.
No, and that's why I wanted to ask you about it, because I think that stigma is less so than it was throughout the decades.
Hmm.
But I still think it's something that maybe young athletes don't talk about as much, because especially, boys or men, maybe as much, because there's still that sense of weakness, right? If I admit that I need
Yeah.
something else in my life, then when it should be me, I'm the one who's supposed to handle all my obstacles. When no, it's okay, right? We know that
Mhm.
it's that we all need some assistance, and all the pressures you discussed about you being a young athlete and overcoming all of those things, or working through those things, and knowing on the other side of it, hey, I'm going to absolve myself of the outcome. The outcome is going
Yeah.
to be what it's going to be. As long as I focus on the things I can control, I think I'll have a fulfilling life and a fulfilling career. And it sounds to me like you're off
Yeah.
to a heck of a start there at Yale.
I appreciate it. It's so far so good. We'll see what goes on. My parents would love to hear you say that. So we'll keep it as that.
Yeah, we'll have to send the podcast. All right, I'll send it to
Yeah.
Jason and Jennifer and
Yeah.
make sure that they listen to that.
We
But I'm
love
sure probably right
that.
now they're
Yeah.
probably looking forward to. They're probably saying,
Oh,
get out of the house. Just
get your
get to school
butt
now,
out
please,
here.
son."
Yeah. Yeah, and they're like, Why aren't you learning right now? Why aren't you studying right now?" It's like, I can't. It's no school right now, mom. So
Yeah,
yeah, they're
yeah,
excited for me to go back though.
yeah.
So
I get a few minutes with Coach Kerr, mom. Okay, and then I'm back
yeah,
to back to school and sports. Right. So well, good stuff. Hey, and of
yeah.
course, obviously, anybody watching this, I was joking with Danny about the Michigan thing. Oh, kind of not, but I'm joking with him. I know he's got to get to school. He's got bigger things going on here. So I really appreciate him taking 30 minutes or 40 minutes to chat with us. A lot of great subjects we got to today, Danny. So best of
Yeah, of
luck to you. And we will stay in touch. And thanks for the time.
course. Thank you. Good to talk.
All right, man.
How long's the How long do you do podcast for? Is it like just kind of like a